We've got the camera going, so this is a real professional deal here.
Yeah, Tom Ayers is the coordinator of our boat donation program for the college here. So he's part of the fundraising arm of our enterprise, and he's also been in the area forever. His family has been around here since late 1890s, early 1900s, and he's got a perspective here that most people don't have because they've been here so long. And it's been mostly located up in, I guess, the middle and northern end of Longboat Key, right?
Yeah.
And he owns a marina called Land's End, and he also has a mold for a 54-foot shallow draft boat hull that could be either a schooner or
Can be anything.
started out as a schooner, didn't it?
Well, it actually started out, Clark Mills designed it, and he designed it as a catch because the potential owner said he wanted it as a catch. And so then when I bought the frames from Clark and the parts, Clark said, well, that he didn't intend it to be a catch at all, that he wanted it to be a schooner, that it was only because of the owner wanting a catch that he had made it a catch. Okay. So I told him that I wasn't really, concerned, that I was used to sailing sloops. So that I would rather do it a sloop just because it would be something, 2 sails are simpler than 3 sails, or 4 sails, or 5 sails. And so that was how that went, was that basically once you buy it, it's yours, and you decide what you want to do with it. And right now I've got an experimental rig that I'm putting on it that's made out of carbon fiber, and it's a patented system that we have that's called the balanced rig. And so that's what we're doing with that boat right now, is putting this patented balanced rig on it. So I'll just go through these things. This is my great uncle's boat. This is the Mistletoe, and the Mistletoe is famous because it brought people from Tampa to Sarasota on a regular basis for the first time. So it was almost like getting a jet port put in, because it used to take like 2 or 3 days by carriage or a horse and buggy or whatever from Tampa to Sarasota. You had, back in those days, you had panthers, Florida panthers, that weren't endangered in those days and are big. They're probably around 100 pounds, big enough to kill a person. You had rattlesnakes. You had the rains that we get, and the road would be washed out, and we still had Indians back in 1900 that were actually making attacks, and they had right in the downtown Tampa, the center of Tampa, Platte Street, they had Fort Brooks. And Fort Brooks was where they all retreated when the Indians would come. So you're talking about Florida as a history it's rich, but it's short. It's not, you go up to New England and you're amazed, that they're talking about 300-400 years ago. Then you go to Europe, they're talking about 1,000 years ago. I was sitting in a coffee house in Stockholm, and it was, like 1,000 years old. It'd been there, it'd been a coffee house for 1,000 years. This is the yacht club that Uncle Johnny founded. He was one of the primary movers. What his business was that he had a fish house. And fish house is sort of, that's a term that really doesn't encompass what he did. He had money. He came here, started an industry that employed a lot of people. At one time he had 157 sailboats fishing out of his fish house. So, when you have sailboats and you have a fish house, first one to the market gets the better price for their fish. So everybody started racing. They were interested in who had the fastest boat. And the fastest boat wasn't just a matter of pride or just, something that was a matter of who could finish first. It was a matter of who got the most money. And you can imagine that if there's fish and a market for fish, and then all of a sudden there's so many fish brought in that they don't want them anymore, then you could definitely just have to throw your fish in the bay, because they had them sold, and as soon as they sold all the fish, then the ones that came with the fish late got less money, if any money at all. So it was important, And they started with this fish house, and then that's why he decided that he was going to start the yacht club. And then these are pictures. I already started with this. I worked with a designer. I actually started sailing boats when I was a little kid. I grew up at a marina. I taught people how to sail sunfish that we would rent. We had one of the first sunfish rentals or sunfish in Florida, and it was a plywood sunfish. So they used to make them out of plywood, and so anyway, I started doing that, and then I sailed prams with the local pram fleet, and so I did that, and then my sister married someone from Sweden, and they had this boat right here. And this boat right here is what they used to call a scary cruiser. And scary, not like we, spell scary, but S-K-E-R. And they were the Scary Isles. And this was in Sweden, a type of boat that was like our cup boat. And these were two of the best boats built back in, say, 1920. I don't know exactly when they were built. But one summer I went there when I was 16, and I sailed on this boat with a family, and we sailed all through the islands. And her name was Beatrice Aurora. And she had songs that were about her. She was a very famous boat. And they were all like a class, just like we have America's Cup class. This was a square meter class, and these were two of the best boats from their day that had been preserved and kept. The second one was Brit Marie, and Brit Marie was an extreme boat. Just to give you an idea, it was 68 feet long and 9 feet wide, and it drew 9 feet. And they told me that it was like sailing in a sewer pipe, that it was really narrow. It was built for a rule. Back then, that was, they tried to optimize. Overhangs were optimized because they weren't rated in the rule. So if you had a long overhang, you were able, when the boat heeled over, to get more waterline length that wasn't counted in the rule. So a lot of this has to do with rules and the fashions of the boats and the designs. So when I was a new college student, I was basically here back in 1971 as a transfer student. And I don't know how it is today with transfer students, but back then it wasn't all that easy. Everybody was suspicious of you. Who's this person? They didn't start with me. And I was also from Longboat Key, and Longboat Key was sort of, there weren't that many locals that went to school here. So anyway, I started to school here, and I was up at FSU going to school, and I was accepted at New College. And back then, New College had a good reputation. And so I thought, well, I can't turn down an offer to go to New College. So I finished my year up at FSU, came down here, found out that it cost a lot of money to go to New College. I didn't have any scholarships. So I got a job working as a lifeguard and went to the junior college for a year, waiting to go to New College. They actually sent me in October, my acceptance to New College, for that year. So I really, just said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish FSU, come and go to New College. Then when I found out how much money I needed, I said, well, I got to work a year. And they told me if I went to Manatee Junior College and I got on the dean's list, that was okay, that I could do that and then go to New College. So I did that. I came to New College, went for a year, and then I was enticed to go to Sweden. We were going to take this boat, we were going to fix it up, we were going to make movies, and we were going to sail around the world. And that, for me, that sort of caught my imagination. I thought, well, that sounds great. I got in with a naturalist who was from Sweden. His name was Jan Lindblad. He was a lot like the crocodile hunter. He was the Swedish version. He was a really neat guy. He was a diabetic, in great physical shape. He had the world record for juggling balls. He was like a real neat guy because he compensated for having physical difficulties. He could do bird songs, and he was a famous Swedish naturalist. And I guess one of the most famous things he did was to try to grab an anaconda out of a river, and the anaconda almost got him. So, I mean, while they're videotaping, this guy's desperately fighting for his life because things went wrong. So we were going to sail around the world. This is what we were going to do. I went and I worked on this boat, Britt Marie, for, about 6 months. And then we completely ran out of money. The boat was nowhere near finished. But I did work for 6 months with this Swedish boat builder. He was actually a Finnish boat builder who was really cool. And I learned a lot about working on boats, wood boats. And this boat was mahogany, which is, real heavy wood, real durable wood. It probably wouldn't have been around unless it was built of mahogany, the finest mahogany. And in Sweden, those are Vikings. That's Viking territory. They were serious about their boat building. They got their wood from Honduras. Honduras and the Americas. That was the best wood. They had it shipped over, milled it, and they built it back in the 20s. So it had about every 10 inches, it had a wood frame, and then another wood frame, and then a metal frame. Every 10 inches for the whole length of the boat.
Whoa.
And the wood frames were riveted on, and the metal frames, I don't remember, I think they were riveted on too. But it was all just really this complicated, it's like a Stradivarius violin. I mean, it was the finest built boat of its day, and we were trying to restore it. And I worked on it for a while, and I had a friend who was a boat builder. His name was Clark Mills, who was like one of the most famous boat builders on the west coast of Florida. He designed the Optimus Pram. If anybody has started out in a training program, you started out in an Optimus Pram. The Optimus Pram is the most built boat in the world. There's more Optimus Prams. I think there's 500,000 Optimus Prams. So other than the dugout, which the design is questionable, who designed the dugout? I mean, a lot of people claim that they designed, the dugout. But anyway, the Optimus Pram was the most built boat in the world, and he used to say that there was something about somebody who could build something that would take you offshore and bring you back. So I mean, he was basically saying that there was these boat builders were like trustworthiness personified. If you were putting your life on the line in a boat, and the person who built the boat was someone who you had to really respect. So anyway, I got into the boat building thing, and I went over there. That all fell through. The next thing we did was we needed money. And so I was young and over there and living in Coldwater Flat. I don't know if any of you know what that is, but Coldwater Flat's where they don't have any hot water. And I had to walk up 4 flights of stairs in a building that was built in 1600. 4 flights of stairs, and the stairs had footprints worn in them. So this is where I was living in downtown Stockholm. And then I got a job building boats for a fiberglass boat manufacturer. So I went and we built a boat called the Tailwind 38, and that was my job. I got paid by the hour. I don't know what I got, $5 an hour, $6 an hour. I used to take the tube to the bus, and the bus to a road, and then walk down this road for about a mile to Tolera's Poppersbrook. It's an old paper mill. And this guy was building these boats there, and I got a job with him working just to make some money because everybody was out of money. Lasse was out of money. This was Lasse. Lasse used to come home and he'd go, he'd pull his pockets out like Charlie Chaplin, no money, I was paying money for the gas for the car. And so we're, working on this boat, and then what I did is I worked with the designer building the plug for a mold. So what you do is you get longitudinal stringers. You set up longitudinal stringers. The stringers might be the length of the boat or a little bit longer. And then you have transverse riders that would sit on top of the stringers. And those would be placed at a spacing given to you by the designer. And then that would be cross sections of the boat at each of those stations. And those are what we would call stations. So then you would just set those up. you would set your frames in place, and the frames you had to loft out,